Good evening, guys. I'm Rohil. I'm a third year tech exec. I'm here with Archit, our tech genius, and also our web dev head. Uh, we are from GDG, and we are here to basically explain what React is. Like, I'm very sure all of you have sat down one day, looked at the website, and gone, "Oh my God, this website is so good." I wonder how those buttons, which create animations, which have the hover features, how they are made. Well, we are here to give you a demonstration of how this exactly occurs, what code is written for that specific feature to happen, and an in-depth, like basic theory of what occurs. Because when you want to implement something, right, you need to know a small basic and I have an understanding of how why that is happening. So we are going to have Archit today, who's going to explain how React fundamentals work, how to install React, if you're doing the code, and how basically a use effect, how the animations, how the components are made for that project to be made to be done. So I'm going to give it to Archit, who's going to explain further.
Thank you, Rohil. Uh, I'll be explaining what React is and an overview of it, how to install it, how to set it up on your machine, and then I'll explain some core features, and then Rohil will teach you game dev in React. All right. React is a JavaScript library for building user interfaces. It's maintained by Meta and is widely used for creating dynamic, responsive websites. So First, I think we should get started with setting up the environment for it. So I'll be putting up two links in the chat. One is for VS Code. I think many of you might have that already. In case you don't, set it up because you might need that. You'll be needing that for the game dev. And second is Node.js. All right. So I'll just start. So you guys can download and install those while I explain all this. Okay. So for creating an app, this command is used. NPM is Node Package Manager that manages all the packages in your projects. So first you create the project by giving this command. And then npm start is used to initiate the project, and then you can have a look at your project. So this is the basic project structure of it. It has a folder called node modules that has all of your packages which you use in your project. Public folder consists of all the things, all the metadata, all your assets, and things which is visible to the user. Then source folder has all of your components, your codes, your styles, everything is inside this. Package.json has a list of all the packages and the details about your app, the name, the version, and those things. So, yeah, so I'll be demonstrating a few things here. So I think, yeah, first you can start with the basic function, how that works. Right. So many of you know what functions are. So in JavaScript, functions are created in this way. So you give it a name. Let's call it. You will just use the function add. Okay. So we'll give it a name add. Then we'll give it parameters, and then we'll just return this. So this kind of function is called a callback function in JavaScript. So here you'll give parameters, and here you'll be doing the computation and returning this. Now we won't be going into the UI for now. We'll just use the console. So we'll console log add 1, 2. Okay. So as you can see here, it gives the output 1 plus 2. That gives it 3. All right. That's a basic function. Then next up we have destructuring. Destructuring is, let's say we have an object here. It has two parameters. One is name and one is age. Now let's say I want to use those parameters in my code. So instead of doing user dot name, user dot age, I can just separate those variables, and that is done like this. Inside curly braces, you write the parameter name, and that's how you destructure it. And also for array, it works in a similar way, just that you use square brackets for that because that's the notation for arrays. Okay, so now I'll tell you what async and await is. So let's say you have a function or you're fetching something from your server. Now that doesn't happen in an instant, right? It takes a few seconds or a few milliseconds. So you can't continue with your function unless until you have got the response from your server. So for that we use await. Now what await does is it stops everything. It like takes a pause until the results are back. So it will run this fetch function and it will wait for the results from your server. And whenever you're using await in a function, you have to put async in here. You have to declare that this function will be using await. So now to demonstrate what component is and what states are hooks and JSX, I will give a small demo of a simple counter. So components are basically we have many. Okay, for example, this is a card. This whole thing is a card. Now instead of making this card 6 times in my code, what I will do is I'll make a component of card and I will call it 6 times. Just like how a function works. You make a function and you call it whenever you need instead of writing that whole block of code again and again. All right. Now states and props. So what state is that when you have a data which you're using on the website, you need something to save it in and use it again and again, maybe increment, decrement, or change the value. So that is what state is. And use state is a hook. So hooks are basically like predefined functions in React, which you can use in your code to reduce the clutter. So I'll be demonstrating use state and use effect, those two. Now, JSX is a file extension. Like if you give a file this JSX extension, that means that you are using HTML like code inside your JavaScript file. All right. So let's get to it. Let's get started with the counter thing. So first, I will create a simple UI. Here, I will create a button and I'll give it some class name. Class name is used when you're using Tailwind CSS for styling. I won't be going into that. That is for a separate workshop, maybe. So I'll give it a height of 10, a width of 10. I'll give it a border, and yeah, and I'll give it the minus sign, and then I have to display the number here, which I will come to later. And here I will just give the font size, font weight, making it bold. Okay, now I'll just create another button for incrementing plus and yes. So here you can see I have two buttons and inside is the value of the counter. So now we'll use use state. So counter. Okay. So this is the syntax of using a use state. So just to break it down, what use state is, let's say I have, so this is my variable counter, okay? And set counter, if I am to make a function for that, counter is equal to, it will have a value and what it will do is, it will basically set this value to the counter. So counter is equal to value. This is the basic breakdown of what a use state is. Okay. So now, so we'll be initializing the value as 0 for the counter, and I will just replace this here. So now when I do this, it will print the value of counter. All right. Now, um, okay. So to tell you what use effect is basically so whatever I write inside use effect, that will run when the page loads, or that will run when you set. Okay, I'll just give an example. So use effect console.log counter and counter. Okay, so what use effect is doing here is firstly, this will be run when the page loads, and also the code inside this will be run when the value of this variable changes, counter. Okay, so so now we'll make the functions for incrementing and decrementing the counter. So const increment, and we'll do counter plus one. All right, simple. Then for decrement, uh, set counter minus one. All right. So these are the two basic functions which we have made just to manipulate the value of the counter. Okay. And I'll just give that here in on click decrement, and here on click increment. All right. So this should work. So here you can see that use effect is working here. So whenever the value of counter changes, it will log the value of counter in the console. All right. And whenever you decrement, whenever there's a change in the value, it will do that. So this was a basic demonstration of what use state is, what use effect is, and how to make a function, how to use the values here, and that's it. So I think now you should get a better understanding of what Rohil will be teaching now, that is game dev with React. Now I'll be passing it on to Rohil.
Thank you, Archit, for that wonderful explanation. So I will be going into game dev with React. Now, you will wonder, why am I using React for game dev? Like we have Unity and other stuff. But for example, like a college kid like me who might not have a really in-depth version of how to use Unity, how to use that. But what game do I like? I like retro games, like 2D games, and especially if I'm as a web developer, I want to integrate some form of a small game in my website. I need to know how to implement game dev in React. There are some inbuilt libraries which are very in depth and very bit complex, which I'll not be going really into. I just want to give you a basic understanding of how game dev is implemented. So I'll share my screen first. Which app were you using? I think that's for Archit's question. That's a web. So any documentations or links which you are seeing, which we are using, are all made by us. Like for example, the intro to website which he had used was a website which was made specifically by us. The websites I will also show you now for documentation and anything else are again made by us for your understanding and how we can give you a better explanation of the code. So I'll be going into my screen first. That's our beautiful GDG logo. So now game dev. What is a game? For example, if I just open a whiteboard and I just say, what is in a game? Let's take, for example, a simple game where a dinosaur is jumping. I think we've all seen the dinosaur game, right? So what are the few things which is implemented there? First is the player, which was a dinosaur, right? Then what else is there? A player is there. Then there are obstacles. There are obstacles, there are players. What else? What else might be in game dev? Maybe a background. Maybe you want to have a game container. Retro games have game containers, so maybe a game container. Not really. That's not really up there, but it is with what you have to make. What else? What else? What else? Is there anything else which you guys can type in chat and tell me what else is in a game which you think is important when you are creating something like this score tracker? Perfect. We need to have a score tracker. Anything else which you guys can come up with? Maybe you wanna time how long a game is being going for, or how much that one gameplay is running. People like statistics, so maybe a timer, right? So these are basic components. We will of course add to this list as we start creating more. Please feel free to type in chat what you think else is really important when you are creating a game. So let's go into documentation I have made. This is the documentation I've made. So I would first of all love all of you to, like, if possible, open VS Code like I have. I will open a new VS Code for you guys. Right. First, you have to create a new folder. Make it like uh, I'll name it my name, Rolly. You know what? Sure. Don't do this. Don't do this. By the way, they're naming convention. Naming convention is important. You can go to the terminal here First step is create a React app. Like like our web dev had explained, you have to create a React app. Instead of my app, replace it with the name you want. Again, like spaceship or space. You know what it's called? Space. It's gonna create the React app. In general cases, also, it's gonna install React and React DOMs. React again is gonna be please try to code along with everyone. We can refer to the documentation created. Yes, so let the project be made and I'll code along with them. Um, in simple cases, also navigate to your app. You have to create your app in general cases. My app will be your app name. You'll have to install the routers. This I will be explaining, or we'll just add it. The I will share the documentation. You guys can also go through it with me. All the codes are also there, so you can look through them. I'll of course be explaining everything. Now, what is Jotai? Before I go into this, what is Jotai? So, like Archit Bhai had explained, like when you are, how do you say, when you are creating a use state. For example, when I am making a component like a running component or a player jumping component, you have to give it a state. Now, but use state when it is coded is local to that component itself. I don't want that in general case also. So I use something called Jotai. Jota is an inbuilt library which you can import or you can down or you can install, which will manage your states for you. It's for example, when I'm a human body, I have a face, I have a body, I have arms. My body will be my structure will be my main code. My arm, my left arm, right arm might be a component. My head might be a component. So you instead of me having to create a use state for every single component, I can break it down atomically. So I will be creating atoms, and every component of mine will just be invoking this atom function, and we can give them the functionality as we go. So React is still being created. React is slow nowadays. I don't know what's wrong with React. Uh, in general case, also Tailwind I am not using. I'm creating custom CSS. You don't. We are in an age where we're using AI. We don't really have to know HTML and CSS code. It is basics. Please do learn it. But Tailwind CSS is also an amazing way of implementing CSS. Again, I'm not using it though. And installing my dependencies. And in general course, I'll just show you how the app will look like. This is the game I made. Again, it's a very basic game. So I have a landing page where in the landing page I can click on the start mission function. With my arrows, I can move my spaceship around. I can destroy obstacles. So you can see I'm very bad at aiming. Yeah, so I can destroy obstacles. And on collision, when the obstacle goes into the spaceship or collides with the spaceship, it was a game over. As you can see, when I can also said components which are required. The player is required, the score is required, a timer we have made. We have made so that a game over menu is there. So when the player dies, the score can be shown in the end. And on clicking play again, the timer and the score should reset. Let's go. Our project is made. Our thing is made. Go into space, like I said, cd my app or cd the name of your thing. Install React DOMs, because whenever you create such pages, like I had shown, right? This is my landing page. This is my starting page. This is one page. Now to connect this to the game page I've made, I have to use route DOM. I have to create routes. So my route DOM is made. Go back to the documentation. We want to install Jotai because we have to implement a use state. Again, like I've explained. Okay, this is made. Also, actually, before I just continue with this, I want to show you a very small diagram. This is what I made using Mermaid.js. So as you can see, we have React component, a Jota. Please, by the way, don't get very overwhelmed by the diagram. It's actually very simple. It's just the React component invoking the atoms which you made in the Jota hook. Our components again will be like my arms, my head, which will also be calling the Jota for the atoms. The atoms are all defined in the Jota hook itself. In the atom management, we have the primitive, the derived, and the atom store. Atom store is where we're going is what we are mainly going to touch. Like when we write, define every state, we want to basically have the Jotai go over, and the derived atom, primitive atoms are mainly in the background, and they'll be working by themselves with the computed values, taking the inputs, and notifying the change to the React component. So in case of collision, when the spaceship hits into the object, that's a change in state that the Jota has to be there to make sure, okay, that state has changed. I need to notify to the React component that state has been changed. Um, Tailwind again, we're not using. This is just so my React like version is a bit different. So I'll have to like just change my AGWay accordingly to it. You can see what it is. It is just a JSON schema validator. Most of you will not be required to use this, but with my React I do. So now that the initial setup is done, as you can see, my structure is made. By the way, when you are creating a React app, like the setup test, the logo, SVG, all are like typically useless. We are not going to touch them at all. App.test.js also, we are not going to use it today, so we can just delete it. When you are removing such components, make sure that they are not being called anywhere or errors can be thrown, right? So now a project is made. Now let's go and see the codes which we want to create. Right. This is our code. Now it's not exactly in order, but I'll go over on what order to what should be implemented. So let's first go with the atoms like JS. I have explained we need atoms.js. So in here, within source itself, create a folder called store. Like I said in the diagram also, the store atom store is going to hold where we define our atoms and it's going to hold those values. So we go back to my documentation. Import atom from Jotai. So atom.js, right? And we import Jotai. Now we have to create a player position state. The player, as I was moving with my arrows, like I showed before, when it is moving left or right, is also a change in state. Movement is a change in state. So in general situation, currently I have not really implemented going forward and backwards. It's just left and right. So the player, the wherever it moves, I have just defined a normal x and y location. X and y location means that it's going to be stored at this location itself. Moving left and right will not go up and down. Let's just copy paste this. I will code with you the parts which are really important. This is just small how to say definitions or like small parts which we don't really need to have to write. So you can just copy paste it directly if you are going with me. We have to destroy the store atom in general. That's our main component. It's the score tracking. It's wherever I hit an obstacle, it should go increment by 1. An obstacle increment by 2. In our case, by 10, 20, 30, 40. Simple. Game state management. This is just for the in situations where the collision has taken place with the spaceship. A game over menu was shown, shown. So this is where it says that, oh, if the collision has taken place, then the game over menu has to be shown. And then with obstacle management, also states of obstacles. Is it mainly obstacle state is taken into consideration when you are shooting a bullet? Because when you're shooting a bullet, when it comes and collides with an obstacle, the obstacle has to be destroyed. That's a change in state. So another item we have to create. Bullet management. Now, how is bullet state changing? I mean, of course, it's being short, right? It has to go, it has to collide with the obstacle. So simple, but it has to be defined. Collision state has to be defined. Game timer, again, last and not least, has to be defined. So now we have created our atoms. Instead of having to go to every component or code when I write and have to create a use state method for every single component, I just made atoms. It's a lot easier. Its initial setup is required, but trust me, it's easier. Now let's create hook. I'm very sure hooks was explained in the previous explanation. Uh, use game loop hook. Let's create a code called use game loop. Oh, no, don't forget to put the extensions. .jsx is important. Uh, Again, so we're going to first import use effect, use reference from React. This you will see in almost every React code we write. Use effect, use reference, use state, but we're not using it. We're going to create a function called use game loop, same as our code name. Now you're going to see there's something I have defined called FPS equal to 60. Do you guys know what FPS is, right? I really hope you guys do know what FPS is. And I don't mean first person shooter, I mean frames per second. Okay. So every 60 frames, like I have defined, every 60 frames is going to check if a collision has taken place, if there's a change in state. This is mainly for Jotai. So the Jotai can at least every at a certain interval of time keep on checking whether a change of state has occurred in any of the components. So we have created the function. We're going to do the initial setup where we're going to call it. We have set the interval up, we have set the previous time up, and the request ref up. The basic explanations I've already given here. Again, the requester stores animation rate, request ID to create loop, tracks the previous timestamp to calculate the time between frames. Again, between every 60 seconds or every frame, it's analyzing, it's calculating the time. Intervals again, just so that we can create a small interval between the desired FPSs. Having it all together might cause it to like have some issues. I myself don't really know why. It's just that you need just make sure whenever you're creating any game which has FPS like frames per second, create a small little space between the two frames. It makes the code much better. It causes less issues with it breaking in general case. So animation function I'm going to define. So we animated time, previous, I'll go back to it. It's easier to show. Previous time reference dot current. If it's undefined, then we're going to create the delta time. If delta time is exclusive interval, we're going to create a callback. In any situation where you do know that your code might fail, for example, my delta time might be greater than my interval, always make sure to create a callback. What is a callback? In general situations when errors occur, creating a callback itself will take you back to an initial page or a page where, for example, I'm very sure you have gone to like initial made websites where maybe all the components aren't defined. So when you click on the component, it takes you to a 404 page error saying that, oh, this is maybe under construction, or maybe this is to be made. So what is that 404 page? That's essentially on call on an error. It's a callback which will take you to a different website. In our situations, the callback is just going to change the delta value, and then yeah, the rest is pretty much self-explanatory. Like previous time dot is equal to time, request ref dot current is request is animate. This is just us calling this method. Now the use effect. This is to keep the. Sorry, I don't know why my control C control is not working. This again, let's just make sure there's no memory leak. It cleans up by canceling the animation frame request when the component unmounts. In general case, also when the as the loop is taking place and the animation loop is taking place by calling the request animation frame use effect just helps in not having any memory leaks in general. And any code you write in React, any code. For example, you have made a use game loop, a function use game loop. Now, this is not Java or C where we can just say, oh, it's void. I mean, my code currently is not void. So, in any situations, what do you do when you do basic coding? You return a value. So, in general situation, instead of returning a value, we're just doing export default and the name of the function you have made. This is going to export it to wherever it's being called. Simple. So hooks and store are made. Now let's go into the components, right? Actually, before components, let's work on app.css. Before I recommend in any case, it's just good practice. It's good to have everything structured. You can, anytime you code, I'm very sure you must know some basics of coding. You don't always just clunk everything up into or cluster everything up into one dot file, right? What do? You create methods, you try to structurally break it down. So in any situation when you have codes like this, I say it's best to just create folders like styles and then move your app.css to style. In any situation, I also when you're creating a React app, since you're just starting, I don't recommend you to touch index.css and index.js. It's just calling the app function and index.css is the font we are using. App.css, right? Now again, you can just edit on this, use Tailwind, but I'm going to teach you custom CSS. So simply Command A, not you, Command A and press delete. Okay. Now let's go into app.css. This again is going to seem pretty overwhelming. In general case, also, I do not expect you to know how to do proper CSS and HTML coding. That's like old, like 90s level stuff. You we have ChatGPT currently. If you do want, just know what CSS ideas you have. Like for example, I knew that in my landing page, I want to have a GDG colored GDG space because of course that's the organization and I have to market it. You're welcome. I want to take these colors. I have to put the widths. Simple, simple, simple. Just what I want. GDG color, GDG yellow, GDG green, GDG green, width of the title, spaceship width, bullet width, bullet height, obstacle height. In general situation, you just need to know what you need and just put it into AI. Honestly, just put it into AI. Writing CSS code currently, I just say is the most boring level thing ever. So don't worry about it. I agree with you. Game container dot loop. You have a game container, width is defined, height is defined. This game container actually, if you see, it's fine. I'm going to play the game. Is this white line container you see? That's a game container. I'm not using the entire screen, and in general situations, I just wanted to give a retro vibe. Maybe like when you're using it on phone, maybe I can create a small component below where it has the buttons and then the thing on top with a small screen in between where the game runs. So that's what I want. So I've created a game container. My bad. Touch action currently is not required because I don't really want to confuse you. I just want to give you a basic understanding of games are made. This has to be made responsive for mobile, so that I won't really go into it. That is something which can be taken up later in the future. Currently, I just wanted to again know how the game is made on React. Flex center, just make the display center. I don't want it to be left or right or out of the screen completely. Right, like how will I play the game? Absolute center again, just mention what the values are. I want to copy this also. Again, I don't really want you to write CSS code again. Learn it, but don't waste time. Game elements. Now, like I had specified in my this here, initial brain elements, which is player obstacles, and I didn't really mention it. I should have mentioned it. Bullets. Bullets are important. It in general can be taken into consideration into obstacles mainly, but it's like not something which is going to kill you. It's something which is going to help you. So we're going to separate define. So again, spaceship. Uh, in any situation, I should have sent you this. I don't. I apologize. Um, my previous code. Where is that code? That's okay. Just remove the PNGs also later. 1 second. I want to use a spaceship. So I'm going to take this image. Any part of code you want to add to your website, make sure you don't just randomly add it to the public folder. Again, it's better to make it structured. So just name a folder called assets, and in that I have the spaceship.png, which is going to be running around. Uh, I will send this image in a few, or if you just want, you can just create a small red triangle. I'll explain that. So spaceship is made. Is background image.url is from here. Background size, background repeat, again background position, transition, image rendering. Because I wanted to pixelate it, you want that retro vibe, no? And then we have the obstacles. Background, we got a small white dots falling. Maybe it's like it's fighting snow, probably, who knows? And box shadow animation in general situations. Bullet, again, width, height, background, these all have to be defined. That's it. It's the pain of writing CSS. So over here. Okay. Actually, because I don't really know how I can share it to you via this. Just 1 second. Just put it in the chat itself. I'm going to share my GitHub repo of the game already made for you guys who also want to just go through it and know how to use GitHub. From there itself, actually, mm, as you can see here, if you just go in public and assets, you're gonna see the image which I've used. Just download the image and you can implement it to your VS Code. I've already shared the GitHub link in my in the chat. You can take it up from there. Okay, back to the code. So UI components. Now score display, timer, health bar. Again, I wanted to implement this. I just have not because I forgot to, but no. It was more the fact that I just felt like to make it very simple. I just show score and timer. We don't need a health bar because I mean, if you look at it from a realistic perspective, if you're getting hit by an asteroid, you're not having a health bar. You're dying. So like skip the health bar and just put in the score display and the time. Okay, no need for health bar. No need for health bar. Again, basic explanations are already mentioned. The small definitions which might help. Game over screen on collision. A game over screen has to be mentioned. So let's define that. I'll explain how exactly these CSS are being called as we actually write the code. Currently, I just wanted to know how the CSS like is written. Example: game over screen. When I collide at position of center, this position is defined here. I want the background of white. This is white backgrounding with padding and border texture line center. So actually, yeah, it's centered. It's white. It's the play again button is here. It's the all the text is centered. It's not left and right aligned. It is centered. So that's what you're defining there. Animation is as I collide. It does a fade in an animation. Maybe let's try dying again. Right? I'll show you how the animation works. So fade again in it is a pretty fast fade in, so it won't seem like a fade in. I should have made it. If you can make the fade in like by changing the time, increase it. The fade in will be more, and you can ease out the ease, and it's all on how you want to make it. Game over. Font type defined here. Margin background. I wanted a bit of a black background, but a bit transparent background, so you can at least still see what's happening in the back of it. Game over screen. Restart button has been defined here. The play again button, again with background of white. It says GDG blue, but it's actually it's white. I don't know. And font size, border cursor, transition. Again, you can change the time of the transition, make it even for a longer period of time, and restart hover button. When I go over the button, I'm going to just do a small animation, which is again I have not really defined it properly, so you won't see it properly. But in general situations, you know what I mean. Again, you don't have to really worry about animation. That comes much later. First, the important part is how the game works, or how in general situation what are the basic components that you have to add. Animation comes later. Even you can have an amazing retro game without having the greatest of like designs or with like the text and then other situations. It's not required as long as the game is fun. Remember, make the game fun. Landing page is this page. Go back, move that. This is my landing page. The home page which you make is your landing page, right? Again, if you just want, you can code along with me, copy paste with me. You know what I'm copy pasting. I'm in app.cs. Go in the landing page 6.1. Because in situations why I'm also emphasizing a bit of code with me is first of all, you don't get bored. Hopefully, you guys will have hands-on practice with me. And in general situation also, instead of just listening when you just type it in with as you're hearing, I'm very sure by the end of this workshop, you will know how to create a basic React website, not even just a game in basic a React website. Why I'm not exactly typing the CSS out and I want you to write in general situation also is because it's not required. Like we have AI currently. You don't have, I'm not expected to sit there for 3 4 hours and write .css code. Now what is this responsive design? What is media query? In general situation when my tab size changes, I wanted the spaceship and the game containers to change, the position to change. That's what it means by being responsive. That's responsive. If it is not responsive, then even though I change this state would stay same. So regardless of how I move it, everything would be covered. So we don't want that. We want a responsive. So that's why I've just defined something called responsive design. Okay, I'm changing the game containers moves, the spaceship position has to move, score display has to move. So just make sure you know what all is moving, what all is changing, right? So app.cs is made. Simple. Now, first thing again, like I said, you need to make the home page, the landing page. So, okay, why? By the way, I think Ajay might have explained it. Why are we using React also in top of it? Why not use something more painstaking like Angular, right? So React in general situation is reusable component. When I create a component, like let me just create a component folder again. Make sure you are structured, and I create something called landing page.js. Whatever I write here, UI design, this landing page itself, you can reuse it in another website you're making. You don't really have to create a cluster website, sit there and wonder, oh, where did I make this part of my code? Like, I don't know where it is. So, this is basically like, again, breaking it into methods. I'm very sure on basics of coding. Components, you can just define the component there itself, call it, and you can reuse it wherever you want. Any other code I want, I can just copy paste this code there, change text here and there, and my design has been just instantly moved from one website to the other. Use navigate. Navigate is again in the situations because when we are clicking on the start mission button, I wanted to go to the next page. React DOM is for page in general. Create a function. I'll write it. Const landing page is equal to. I forgot to add. I've right. I've created my component. This is just delete the dot. By the way, every single thing we're going to write from onwards is going to be within this function itself. Just make sure I've added the dot to just show you that the remaining pieces of code go into this. So then just create a const for your navigate, your news navigate. Again, we have to use React DOM, switch it to the next page, and create a return function. Right. We want to create a return function. Why are we making a return function? Whatever you see when writing code, you have navigate, use navigation, anything right above the return itself is not when I call this component is not going to be sent to the other component. It's only what I write within the return itself and I export default landing page. What's within the return statement itself will be sent. So in navigate, when I'm creating a function here, I will call it within the return statement itself, so that when I do send it, it gets sent. So just create a div names for the landing container stars and twinkling. We just did make this right. Uh, and we are also going to create the content section. I mean, let me just see what's wrong with you. It's going to cause an issue actually. Landing page. Okay. Where's my content section? Content section is going to be my game title, GDG Space Fighters, space icon. You won't really see this. Play button, and then on click navigate to slash game. Why am I doing slash game? So when I go to my app.js, I'll show you eventually. Actually, I can show you the small part of the code here. We'll write it later. This game board component is what's going to hold on my game. So when I define a path of slash game, if you put over here, you see that it's my app slash game. So the slash game will take me to my game page. So in general situation, when I go to my landing page, I just say make slash game. It should go to on clicking start button. It should take me to that page itself. So I'll just copy this down for you. I should have having to like bore you guys out. Right. And export it. So Let me just do this. Return is there, landing page is there, start mission is there, and then we exported default. Whatever we have written in the return function should be sent. If you guys do get an error in the code, just let me know. Uh, I will solve it with you, and I'll let you know what issues can how that if you ever do get that issue again, how it can be solved. Again, if you're going along with me, you will know how the issues go. Okay, landing page is done. Actually, let's try this. If I do cd into my npm run start, when it works, pray to God, it works. That's the best you can do. Okay. Go here, localhost. Yeah. What are the issues? So in logo.svg, where's logo.svg being formed? I think it's here. Search it. In any situation where you don't know what is this, you can go on VS Code here, search where it's being called. It's being called app.js. Again, we are not using this, so we don't need it. Oh wait, yeah, wait. My bad. My bad. Before doing npm start, I should have first taught you how to make app.js. That's the important part. So app.js. Let's go back to app.js. So import statements, again, always required. Go here, take, do control A, and then remove it. I just want to say everything. Okay. Okay. Remove everything. Put in your thing, inputs. What I'm going to input. Provider is what my Jotai is going to be calling. Browser router is for my route DOMs. Landing page and gaming components. Gaming component. Let's just comment this out. And app.cs is being called. Then I have to create a function app. Again, create a method. Function app. I did use the wrong back. Function app is made. And now we're making a method. This wrap it with the provider. Provider set. So within this, anything you make, like for example, my game components, my games, my codes, everything will be the provider. Why? Because my provider is some Jotai. Any use state I do, I need it for the use stage to be handled by the atoms which you have made, the Jotai atom. So any landing page I make, game components I make, all has to be within the provider itself. So Jotai is given access to these specific codes, right? And simple, create your own. Create it. And we just comment this out for now, right? What does a slash mean? Slash means that whenever there's nothing there, just you go to the link itself. This will be the first page to which you go. Let's see what's the errors we are getting. We're getting some errors apparently. Cannot find your landing page. Make sure that your roots are correct, by the way. So slash component slash landing page, and in export default dot app have no default. Okay, we will need to create the again any functions you made. You have to return the value or export the value. I'll stop using return now to not just say return. I was just saying initially, so you guys know why I'm doing export default. I'll now just say we'll export the value. Right? We're getting another code. Let's do debugging together. Cannot find asset spaceship.png. Okay, that's again just simple. Me not writing the part properly. Yeah, okay. I think yeah, it just wants public. Done. Do I show the code? close here, right? Landing page. Everything's made. Make sure everything's done. Node.js. Yeah. Oh, I see what the issue is. So you cannot just directly put the landing page like element equal to landing page. Just do in the router itself. This out in the router itself. Need a name. Okay, should be done. Yes. Our landing page is built. Simple. Hopefully. So then the path is done. At path, I want to call landing page. My import statement is made. Again, if you are not exporting properly or exporting the defaults properly, the code will not work because again, even if you define anything, if you're not sending it, it doesn't work. Uh, Route path at path this element should be landing page, which is your component. And once I create my game board, I remove the comments. It'll do that. Now let's go to the individual components before we act the small components we have to make. Again, I'll not really focus on that. Spaceship component. I just create a component called spaceship. Dot JSX. Import. Create this. Spaceship position with the React function. Take the React thing. Replace it here. It has to be in the function. Indented. Make sure it's properly. Okay, okay, okay. Make sure everything's properly indented just for like your understanding. Class spaceship at position bottom this, bottom that. X and Y, like I shown you already in the atoms, we are already defining an X and Y position. So you just want to make sure that at the left and bottom position is fixed. Again, we have defined X and Y positions. And this part's not really requested. So this is what I've added in case you don't want to exactly make a .png. You can in app.css create your own spaceship and do thrusters. But we don't really need this part again. I've added these small lines of code for you if you want to like actually do more with it. Spaceship is made. Let's go. Now, obstacle. Obstacle.jsx. I have not spelled it correctly. So again, also one more thing. When I'm saying React with game dev, I really and why I'm saying focus. When you saw the poster, also saw game dev of retro games and 2D games. It's because you can't really create a game like a proper game in React where you can go to certain areas because in any situation, not only does the player move only within the screen itself, but making the background move is a bit difficult because you can only give an animation to the background of its scrolling. For example, in the space in the jumping dinosaur game, the animation of the background is moving, not the player. The player is only moving up and down. If you actually do notice, the dinosaur is not running forward. It's the background that's going back and the obstacle that is coming in. The player itself is only jumping up, down, up, down, up, down. There's no forward motion. So in any situation where you do want to integrate like 3D games into your website, you can try learning 3JS, but we're not focusing on that. We're only focusing on how, whether in that 2D space, how to move your character in a certain position and the obstacles making coming in and having, yeah, and making that. So again, import React. You're gonna add this everywhere. Import React. I mean, how will we use React without importing it, right? Create a const obstacle. With an obstacle, define a return function. Let me remove this. I'll not make the same mistake as last time. Right? Simple. Div obstacle name. Why I'm saying class name equal to obstacle is in general situations when you do create your like in Tailwind, you're going to put all of your CSS code within that class name double quotes. But this obstacle is already been defined in app.css by us. If I just search obstacle, we have already defined an obstacle. So when I do say here and I say class name is equal to obstacle, then uh yeah, it's going to call that CSS function, right? And simple. When you do create a return method, don't forget to export. I'm really stressing on this because you might not be as dumb as I was when I started this with web dev, but I always forgot like, oh, I have to add that if statement. Like you can see itself, I just forget to add like one or two brackets. In general situation, it's mistake which can be made by everyone. It's not it's something that happens. You forget you're writing code. Then let's make timer. Let's make a timer. Timer dot JSX. JSX. If you do want to create only a JavaScript sole thing, is .js. If you want to create a React to JavaScript, .js. I should have explained this earlier. My bad. Timer.js. We have to import not only React but a use atom because we have a use state coming into consideration, and the specific atom which will handle the timer. So not just use atom from Jotai, but you also have to call the store from store.atom, the timer atom which we have made to handle the timer state. Const timer equal to game over. Okay. Const timer, game over, time set time, use atom. So it's time set time, which we're going to pass into the use atom, which we're going to send as information to this timer.atom. It's going to take this information. This is what we're going to like a parameter. And with this parameter, it's just going to simply see that, okay, time is there, time is incrementing. When collision takes place, I restart the game, set time, and make the time back to zero. Simple. And semicolon. Simple. Then use effect. I'm going to copy this. I got some space there. So use effect. Game over const timer is equal to set interval, set time previous equal to this 100. So game over in situation when in the timer in this is actually a flag. If I show in my collision manager, I'm setting something called game over. When you check for collision and you actually do see that a player has collided, if player collision you set game over as true. This is basically the flag value. So when your game over is currently false, it's set to true, it's going to check. Oh, what is with up with the with the game over? It's going to set the game over, set time, and at one and it's going to set intervals. Okay, at every 1 second increment the timer by one. Timer is incrementing by one at 1 second. Each 1 second is incrementing the timer by one. It's a timer. Checks if the game is active or not. If the game is not active and I do collide, reset timer. Simple. So this is basically again a timer and a time setter. Now I have to format the time. Format time minutes mat.floor seconds. We all know it's second is divided by 60 minutes. Uh, Remaining seconds we get the 6 seconds required. So we don't really have a requirement for remaining seconds here because we don't have an upper limit here. and then minutes dot to string, remain time to string, and whatever to string you're seeing here is what values you want to see here, and a render component. Again, why have I labeled this as component render? Component render, I'm saying this is again, this return statement is what going to be read by when you're going to send this component, or is when your component is called, only this is going to be read. This is what's going to be rendered. We are defining methods, which is going to be taken up here. Everything which we are back, the calculation in the back, everything is going to be taken place, and we use export time. Simple. Now our game over menu. Let's go with game over menu. Let's create the game over menu. Game, uh, uh, game over menu. .jsx. Simple. We have created a component for game over menu. See, again, why are we using React? This game over menu, if I make like 3 other different websites, I can just call this game over. I don't really have to focus on sitting there like, oh, I have to write another code for game over. No. And you can just work on it. So again, import React on restart game over. We want to take score and on restart. Within that itself, we want to make the return statement for this. And game over menu, take start on restart. When the game over takes place, it is there, it's going to do game over. Final score is going to display a score. And then on clicking the play button, it's going to do the restart where it restores the score. Thing. Now, will this code work? Do you guys think this code will work? There's something which is missing. Something is missing. And I've really like shaded on it. Will it work? I mean, everything is defined, right? I've called the CSS. I have made. So I've called the score. I've defined on restart. Play button is made. The button is defined. What is missing? The export function. Now it will work. So spaceship is made. Collision manager. We will make. Game over is made. Landing page is made. Obstacle is made. Timer is made. Bullet component we will make. Hook is made. The bullet component is left. Collision manager is left, and the actual game itself is left. Let's go to collision manager because we need to implement collision manager for the bullet. Copy this again. This is going to be used everywhere. Collision manager. Uh, .jsx. Paste. Use effect, use atom, collision atom. We all know why this is happening. Instead of using use state, we are just using the atoms in general. Create the function. Created the function. In this situation, also you will see I'm passing these parameters. In normal situation, normal like if you see here, like the landing page. There's nothing here exactly, and I forgot it also was because we don't really have parameters here. But you have to define that bracket there. It's more of a constructor maybe, but in normal like in Java and another place where you do create constructors, you can only initialize them. You actually can't work or give them values. So it's more of like a child if a constructor method give a child. You know what? Let's just say that. That's made. We want to make a use effect again to define a use effect is made. Again, to reset the collision state when the game is active, run game over state changes, dependencies including game over and set collide is done. Simple. Now what is it? The main collision detection effect. Now this is what you call physics engine. A much, much, much higher version of this is made by Unity and other things in C++, which they call physics engine. When you are running or when in the situations a ball hits in FIFA, you know what play like this FIFA example or NBA, some people play both the games. In other situations, when the ball hits the board, it has to bounce back. When the football hits the post and you miss the goal, like you normally shouldn't, but you do, it goes to the left or it goes to the right, depending on where it has hit the post. That's all physics engine. So I've just created a small physics engine, not exact, where it's just a very, very basic one. Imagine, let me take this kind of example. This is my spaceship. You hope you can see it. This is my spaceship. As it is going and the can is here, it's going to collide. On collision, I hope that wasn't too loud. It falls, it breaks. The collision breaks, the spaceship crashes. That's what I've made. So simple, use effect and check collision. I've given the spaceship height and width. I'm very sorry if there can be a lot of noise, by the way. I just want to give like a physical demonstration of it. Player collision. So at X, player position is this. Obstacle position is greater than player position. This is all math. This is all like simple game physics magic which you need to use. Optical y plus 20 is 600 minus spaceship y. So what is this? What is this player collision? This is not, I am not going to check if the obstacle has hit the player. That's no. That's not going to check. Even when you create a gun which shoots like in Call of Duty and hits a person, it's not going to check if it has hit the player. The player is going to have something called a hitbox, or the gun itself is going to have a hitbox. When you define a hitbox of like a player, or in general situation of when you shoot or when come into consideration, so I have defined what that hitbox dimension is, because when an obstacle goes past me but doesn't touch the hitbox, it's not a collision. It's going to, when it touches the hitbox is when the collision takes place. And if collision is there, and if it is colliding, set collision true and game over is true. Simple. And simply just make the collision interval. What is collision interval? Again, frames per second. It's going to check for collision every 60 seconds, 60 fps. Or why is it 16 here? Every 16 fps is 16 milliseconds. And yeah, the cleanup function is made. Then we have this return the value, and then obstacle is there. And since you're already returning what the game physics is, just do a return null and export the default manager. I always understand. You understood what's actually happening here. Again, we have defined the space width and the space height when the object is hitting the spaceship. This is very important. So I'm just going over it again and again. It's not exactly hitting the spaceship. I've defined the hitbox around it. It's like if this is my spaceship and this black part around it is my hitbox. So even if I do come here and it does hit the hitbox, it's going to define it as a collision. You can maybe change the hitbox for it to be more closer to the object as possible. But in any situation, currently I just made a simple rectangular hitbox around the spaceship itself. Okay. So a collision manager is made. Let's go to the bullet component, the fun part. So bullet.js. Again, this the imports are the imports. Any library you use, Java, Python, you need to have library. You have to call the imports. Even C programming. Uh, Bullets are made. Set bullets, set score, set obstacle. These are our use items which you have defined here. Score item, bullet item, game over items, all are made. So set score, bullets, obstacles. Collision detection effect. Now, mm, I can really show it. If I'm the spaceship and I have this thing, I have to throw a bullet. I'm going to shoot a bullet. When my obstacle is here and I shoot the bullet, I missed. I don't know how the hell I missed. I don't know how I missed. But it's going to hit the object and it's going to cause the object to destroy. So that's the collision effect. So in general situations, already the collision effect I've made with the bullet also having a hitbox hitting into this is made. We just have to add a function where when the bullet hits the object destroys and the bullet also destroys. So I just use the use effect part here. Simple. Check bullet collision. Set obstacle. Again, it's creating a hitbox for the bullet, and then it's just going to see if it has collided or not. On collision, we just want to destroy the objects and the bullets in general. That's right. X Y I D set bullet, set score, set obstacle. On then the bullet is when the bullet does hit, I would have set score plus 10. For example, if I made this 100, on every time you destroy an obstacle, it's going to increment your score value by 10 or by 100. You make it 1000, increment score value by 1000. Let's keep it 10. And yeah, that's done. And a return function with your export. Any questions you guys do have, please put it in the chat box. And again, if you are going along with me, I do feel like it'll be more understanding and more fun to do. Right. So that's that. Back to home. So collision manager is made, bullet is made, timer is made, landing page is made, your obstacle is made, your game board is made, spaceship is no game board is not made, spaceship is made, everything is made. Only one code is left, and that is your game board. Now the game board is what you're seeing here. This game board is your entire screen, calling the game container, calling the obstacles, calling the spaceship, calling the score, the timer, everything. That's all in this entire code is just the game board, right? This is the important part. Game board.jsx. Now we've come across an interesting term. Use client. Some of you might know what use client means. What is use client exactly? When I define something as use client, it's what's going to be shown to the front end user. Because why? When I create a backend, like for example, let's take my atoms.js as a backend, my use state as a backend. Whatever you're seeing here is for the client, for the front end user. Whatever you make for the back end is server component, not a client. The client component, server component. The server component should not be shown to the user, so we just define it as server. Whatever you define as use client will is what we want to show to the user. So any front end thing you made, you use client. In any situation, when you go forward and actually do create websites, I highly plead and do recommend that in any code where you do put use client, don't put any sensitive information. For example, if I do have a game board here and I want to do like an API call, it's a bit different from the thing. I'm just explaining what use client is. If I do an API call when I want to connect my MongoDB, my Mongo database, it's a database where my thing is saved. So to access this Mongo database I made, it's gonna have a key and a password. Actually, you know what? Instead of writing here, I think it's better if I show it. This is very important. That's why I'm just focusing on going deviating a bit and just focusing on this because this is again very important. If you have a database, this is going to have a key and password. This key and password when you're writing code, like imagine I'm writing some of code here, code. Don't put your key and password in the code itself. Because when you do put your key and password in the code itself, and if the user like Archit used when explaining the code itself does inspect element, they will see your key and password, and by just using those two values, your entire data is in their hands now. So don't ever in a code that uses use client, in any code that uses use client, never put any sensitive information in it. It should not be used at all. Again, this is in any situations where you do want to create any simple website. For my case, when I made my portfolio website, uh, any of my data which was being stored was not to be put in the use client function. What you can do is in a situation where you do make keys or anything, just create a .env file. You create a .env file, store all of these key and passwords to a variable name, and you call those variable names in the game board component. Then the values will not be shown. Only the variable name will be shown. That's how you protect your data. That is number one rule of protecting your data whenever you do create a React method or a React website. Very important. Whenever you create a website, should be in your head. You can do any small mistakes like forgetting to maybe return or maybe to export default, but never always be sure to save your data. Your data is what's very important. Anyone like our lead Nishit Batwal, a cybersecurity genius, can take your data. So just be safe, okay? When you're creating a website, just be very secure and just make sure that all of your data will not be leaked when you make client. Okay, enough with the yapping and going off discussion. We'll go back to the game dev. So use client. We set it up. Simple. Import the libraries we want. Call the store items. Now we have to call the components because we are what's going to be displayed. And we're going to call the rest of the components. Obstacle, bullet, spaceship, game over menu, collision menu, timer menu. Okay, simple. All being called. Make a function called game board menu. Since all of these components are being used, and in any situation like where this is the main page is all the things, define all of the atoms here. Define all of the atoms. Again, this is a small con of using Jotai. When you use a use state of like collision manager or bullet, that use state is to the component itself. So you don't really have to just write it anywhere else within the code itself. Again, it has a bit of a setup, Jotai, like atom.js, go on game board menu, wherever you're calling it, you have to also set up the atom there. But it's much easier than use state. I'm telling you now. Okay, take my word for it. That's made responsive container setup, like I showed you. On dimensions, width, mat.min, height, mat.min. We're going to put the Windows listener up, update dimensions, the Windows.remove event listener, resize updates. Just simple to the window commands. So if I do window.add.event listener, like for example, initially when my first game dev was the cryptex runners, right? So we made the entire code, and I wasn't able to create a logic for a respawn. We have a collection logic and a respawn logic. So how do I create a respawn logic? Like I'm lost. Like what do I do? So I was like, I am a bit of a lazy man. What I just did was I did a Windows add event listener, and every single time I do die, and it does a play again. On clicking play again, I was just reloading the page. So don't do this. I'm saying this now. Just think of a nice logic. Again, you have AI to help you. I just added a window to add event listener and reload page. Not don't do that. Don't ever do that. Okay, that's just lazy writing, and that's avoid. Okay. Constant move distance, another function which you're creating. Okay. So container dimensions, width, height, all have been defined. Offsets have been defined. So in any situation, when I do move around, okay, and okay, let's show this part. If I reduce the size of the screen, you still see the bullet is still coming out of the spaceship. If I reduce it further, it's it's not exactly going properly. Again, that's because not I've exactly like worked on it. But if you can still see, it's coming from near where the spaceship is. That's what you have responsive offsets. So that's defined. Max position, bullet offset, bullet start, where the bullet is starting from, where it's coming from, and we want to make it relative to the container. So when the container moves to the left or the right, we know where the position is going to move equally. So we are going to go with the container dimensions itself, and then minus or subtract as you see. So maybe go there, try to put some value, and maybe the bullet start coming from here. So you'll know, okay, I want to move to the left a bit, so increase the value. Go here, go here, go here. Then the starting position will be here. So it's all trial and error. Again, I'm not expected to sit there and just try every single value possible. You have AI to help you. We are 2024 generation. Let's go. So handle key press. What is handle key press? Arrow left, arrow right. I have not integrated WSAD. People who actually do play games don't hate me. Okay, I wanted to again keep it a bit as simple as possible. Do not kill me for not adding WSAD. I know you all use WSAD. Currently, just to make it very simple, I've added an arrow left and an arrow right. You can also define the case of press when you click the button of W, it will go left, it will go like S, A, it will go left, you press D, it will go right. I have just defined arrow, arrow, arrow left, arrow right. Okay. So as you do click on arrow left, arrow right, it's going to keep on changing the position of max position, which you have defined here. So as you do, as I move to the left, it's going to move with me. As I move to the right, it's going to move with me. Okay. On arrow left, find the max value of the previous position minus move distance. So if I'm here's my previous position, I go here, it's going to do the subtraction, get the proper x value, and then move it here. Get the x value, move it here. Because I can't just directly change that max position to the move distance because it doesn't exactly work. Like you need to find like a proper mathematical distance between them and then get that distance, subtract that distance from the change. It's like it's simple math. Okay, it's math. Okay, you can't lazy your way out of it. You have to find the distance. You have to move it to the distance. So yeah, I cannot directly just make this value this value. It doesn't work like that. If you do figure it out, you're a better coder than me. So user spec is made. Do this part. Okay, add event listener on key down. When I do click on key down, which is my space bar, bullet speed and obstacle speed has been calculated accordingly. And on a game loop is uh, on not game over means the game is not over. Create bullet movement. By the way, just try to you have commenting for a reason in coding. Just comment what you guys write. Actually, I should have done this before. This is my fault. Actually, I should have explained this much earlier. Anything you write, just write comment. Like you know when you come back to it. Like, oh, this is my obstacle CSS, my left position, my right position, spaceship, timer. This is when I'm calculating minutes. I'm calculating this. This is display. So try to comment your code, okay? Like especially when you go forward and you do work, you are not going to be the only one who reads your code. Your code is going to go to a code reviewer. The code reviewer is going to read your code. If you make your code very like ununderstandable, the code reviewer is not going to let your code go through. Code review is very brutal, by the way. Once you go to companies and you actually start going through the process, it's very brutal. So make sure everything is labeled, by the way. So I have set my obstacle management and I've created a return function. Simple. Now the game reset handler. On clicking the play again button. In general situation, maybe not, but on when you lose or when the collision takes place and you click play again, you did an error. That's a human error. You know what? You made an error. You collided into it. You did not play the game properly. So you can make the handle restart as a use callback where you can reset all of the values, go back to that page itself. Okay. So when I do here, I play again. It's going to reset all of my values. It's basically a callback. It is a plan B. I as a user when I'm playing, I lost once. I'm like, I lost. Now I've lost a plan B. Play it again, try again, try something different again. It's generally a callback. So I've defined it as a callback to make it like easier to understand. And in general case also, that's what callback does. And then when an error takes place, you go to the 40 page or you go back to the page without the extra things being done. You know what? Actually, the best way to explain is if you know Mac, a callback is a time machine. You are at a current state. You do something that causes an error. A callback will take you back to this state itself. It's a time machine. That's actually a very good way of explaining it. So game board rendering. Let's make the return values. I'll go over the code as I write it. I'll just do it here. Do it here. So make a diff function, call the game container, define the game container of which thing because that's what the value is taken. Call the timer component, define it, just call the timer component. Class name is again we are saying core display. Obstacle mapping, and then we're going to call the obstacle component. Again, we're just calling what all we made. Bullet component, we're going to call the bullet component, and then spaceship position is made with by calling spaceship component. Then we're going to call the collision manager, and we're going to create a game over. and we're going to call the game over menu. Simple. And we're going to end it and then create a export default game board. Again, I really hope you guys do understand what I'm doing. Again, if you have any form of code, you can ask in the chat. I am there. Our genius Archit is there. So yeah, it's made. Let's see if it works. Hopefully, it's cross hands. It didn't work. Maybe some error is there. Oh wait, I'm very sure it's the option. The components being called. Yeah, the components being called. So it is slash components. Components slash. I don't actually have to do that also. Just directly put it. That shouldn't be an issue. Oh, that shouldn't be an issue. That just like that. That still doesn't work. Maybe 1 second. This is here. My bad. Sorry. Can I take this? I think it's a port issue. Sorry. Let's do yes, DD and PM. Oh, why did it create the okay? Localhost 300,000. Start game. It's made. Set. Works. So the exact game which I've deployed works here. That's basic game dev. App.js is made. App.cs is made. There's all this. And yeah, that's how it works. And this documentation which I have made, you guys can go over it. You guys can see it. I've already sent the links in the chat, and that's going to be the end of the workshop. And we have ended a bit early. I didn't exactly like sit and write the codes again. No one's going to expect to write the codes by hand. It's best practice when you're learning, but you have ChatGPT to help you. You have Perplexity to help you. So yeah, if I think Nishit, if you can open for questioning, that will be great. I've also again just sent the GitHub link. So if you do go here to my GitHub, everything is here. Everything is made. I made proper documentations. I've added everything you can. And yeah, again, if you have any questions, I think there is a small technical issue. So the unmute, you can't really unmute, but please, if you do have any questions, please do put it in the chat. And if you guys did enjoy the thing, by the way, I really do hope you guys give a thumbs up in and at least you know what, wait, celebrations. Max features are nice. So that's the end of the workshop. Thank you so much, guys. I really hope you guys enjoyed.